Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Gimel Amiras Hashem. Today, we will be learning Daf Samach Gimel Amid Aleph. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Shabbos. We pick up today on Daf Samach Beis Amid Beis. Really, we have a drop of unfinished business here from Siman Reish Pei Daled Sif Hey. We have Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Yud Aleph that begins on the very bottom line of Samach Beis Amid Beis. Our learning should be a schus for Achenu Beis Yisrael, Hanesuna Batzaro Bashivya, Ha'imdim Bein Bayom Bein Bayabasha, Hamakim Yerachem Alehem, V'Yitzia Mitzara Lervacha Me'afel La'ira Mishibet L'Geula, Hashta Bagol V'Zman Kariv and Emar Amen. Our learning should be a schus for Shalema, for Tzvi Ben Leah Miriam, and for Daniel Ben Naomi. Our learning should be a schus for Yisrael Ben Rachel, Yonasan ben Michal and Yoel ben Michal. The Rebbeinu Shalom should watch over them together with all of our others, brothers and sisters that find themselves in harm's way. Bechol Makom Shehem. So, I'm going to just read again the words of the Ramah on the bottom of Samach Beis Amid Beis, the very end of Siman Reish Pei Daled Sif Hey. The Ramah said, Hagah, Ushnayim lo yomru HaTorah b'pam achas. Two people should not read the HaTorah out loud at the same time. Why you would be tempted to do such a thing, I'm not sure. But in any case, the Ramah tells you not to do that because of the rule, Ditrei Kali Loi Mishtami. We always say this rule, that when two people say things at the same time, then the listeners don't hear anything clearly. Trei Kali Loi Mishtami. Two voices cannot be clearly heard at the same time. Going down to the Mishnah Berurah over here, Mishnah Berurah is cutting Yud Aleph. We already did Yud. Says the Chavetz Chaim, I am the Magen Avram. The Magen Avram points out that this halacha, that you should not have two people read the HaTorah at the same time, dafka b'kol ram. This is only applicable if they're going to be saying it out loud. Avo b'lachash. But if one of them is reciting it quietly, mutar loymar, that's not a problem. So you could have the Bal Koreh reading the HaTorah out loud, and you can have others saying it along with him if they're saying it quietly. And indeed, we're going to see very shortly that some suggest that that is exactly what should be done. So, the problem of Trei Kali Loi Mishtami is when two people are saying it out loud together. If one person is saying it out loud, everybody who's listening can clearly discern his voice. The people who are saying it quietly, that doesn't interfere with hearing the loud voice. Now, going to Samach Gimel Amid Aleph, says the Chavetz Chaim, V'gam nachon lechatchila lasis kein likrois balachash mitoich hasefer im haKoreh. Indeed, the Mishnah Berurah brings down from the Sefer Tosefes Shabbos that this is exactly how it really should be done. The Bal Koreh should be reading the HaTorah out loud, and the people that are listening should repeat it together with him silently. Now, why should it be that way? So the first thing that we have to be clear about is, and we'll see this as we go on in the Mishnah Berurah, is that this is true, assuming that the Bal Koreh is reading the HaTorah out of a chumash. If the Bal Koreh is reading out of a chumash, then the halacha is really that he can't be moitzi the tzibur with his laning, because he's not reading out of a Sefer Shalom. He's certainly not reading out of a klaf that was written according to all the dinim, let's say, of a Sefer Torah or a Megillah. We went into this yesterday. Even if he's reading from a Sefer Shalom, even if he's reading a HaTorah that happens to be in Sefer Yehoshua, and he's reading from a printed Sefer Shalom of a Yehoshua, he's not reading from a klaf. And now we start getting into some of the shilos that we spoke about yesterday of dvarim shelo niten likasev, that really you're not allowed, if you're writing it in a chumash. So in a chumash, you only have, it's like a Sefer Haftarta, you only have the selections from the Navi that are the Haftarahs. You don't have a Sefer Shalom. When you're not reading from a Sefer Shalom, the Bal Koreh cannot be moitzi the tzibur with his laning, and therefore each person has to read it on his own. Now, there's another reason why in halacha, when the Bal Koreh is reading from a chumash, they want the tzibur to say it on their own. Let's go weiter in the Mishnah Berurah. V'ayin b'Pri Megadim. Take a look at the Pri Megadim, the mashma where it is implied, the yira likrois mila b'mila im hashliach tzibur. Another reason why you should say the HaTorah together with the Shliach Tzibur is Kedei Sheyitzayis LaHaKoreh, to make sure that there are people that are listening with kavana to the Baal Koreh. The problem over here is that the laning of the HaTorah is a davar shebekdusha. It's something that requires a minyan. Now, whenever you have something that requires a minyan, it's not enough to just have 10 people in the room. You have to have 10 people who are paying attention, who are actually listening. So even, let's say, the regular Kriyas HaTorah, let's say you have a very small minyan, and you have 12 people. Well, if you have 12 people in the minyan, and 4 of them are sitting in the back and schmoozing while the Baal Koreh is laning, guess what? You're laning without a minyan, because you don't have 10 people that are paying attention and listening to the Kriya. Kriyas HaTorah is a davar shebekdusha. It needs a minyan of people who are engaged, who are listening and paying attention. So too by the HaTorah, the Pri Megadim says it's a davar shebekdusha. We need to make sure that there are 10 people who are actually paying attention. How do we do that? By making sure that the people repeat the words of the HaTorah. They say it along together with the Baal Koreh. If they themselves are reading it from the Chumash and saying it along with the Baal Koreh, then we know for certain they're listening, and then we know that we have a minyan. Vayin b'bir halacha masha kasavdu b'shem shari Ephraim. He sends us to the bir halacha dibra maskal detrei koli back on Samach Beis Amid Beis, where he quotes a shar Ephraim, and it's worthwhile to see this bir halacha inside. So I'm going to read part of it. I'm not going to read the whole bir halacha, but the beginning of the bir halacha I'm going to read out loud. Read inside here on Samach Beis Amid Beis bir halacha dibra maskal detrei koli. Ayin b'Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Yud Aleph. Take a look at Mishnah Berurah is Katan Yud Aleph. Va'ayin b'shari Ephraim shar tes sif pei lamed gimel. He sends us to shar Ephraim shar tes sif pei lamed gimel. Shekosav v'zel l'shaynai, where he writes the following words: Iker hadin, the Iker hadin, the way the HaTorah should be carried out is Shezeh she'ala lamaftir, the one who gets the aliyah from maftir, hu bilvad yomer HaTorah. He should be the one that's reading the HaTorah. V'atzibur yomru gam ken acharav balachash, and the Tzibur should be saying it along with him. Now, of course, that's back in the day when the person who actually had the aliyah from after was the one who actually read the HaTorah. Now we don't do that. Now we have a Baal Koreh reading the HaTorah. So the Baal Koreh should read the HaTorah, and the Tzibur should say it along with him quietly. In our regions we have the minig shahakoil oimrim ha'haftorah imam after b'yachad b'koil ram. The Shar Ephraim says that in his regions they had developed the minig where everybody said the HaTorah together out loud. But, says the Shar Ephraim, v'hu mechesrain yediyah. That's an error. It's not right what they're doing, and they're doing it based on a lack of knowledge. V'nochein levatel minig, and we should be mevatel that minig. Ulechatchila yesh linoik lechatchila, the minig should be shahamaftir yomar HaTorah b'kol ram ka'hakoreh b'sefer Torah. The maftir should read the HaTorah out loud the same way the oila reads from the Sefer Torah out loud. Or, in our case, the Baal Koreh should read the HaTorah out loud the same way the Baal Koreh reads from the Sefer Torah out loud. V'hatzibur yomru acharav balachash, and the tzibur should repeat it along with him quietly. V'al kol panim, and at least, toiv sheyu asara oimdim samach lahamaftir sheyishmu l'koil ha'omer ha'HaTorah. Again, this idea that they should read the HaTorah along with the Baal Koreh quietly is based on the need to have 10 people that are paying attention to the HaTorah so that you have a minyan. That's why the Shar Ephraim says, really, lechatchila, everybody should say it along with the Baal Koreh. That way we know that we have a minyan listening. But at least, if we're not going to do that, we should at least make sure that there's a minyan that's close to the bima that we know is listening to the HaTorah, so we know that the HaTorah is being done in a minyan. Okay, now let's go further in the Mishnah Berurah, where he's going to bring down the Gra. Vayin b'Sefer Ma'aseh Rav. Take a look at the Sefer Ma'aseh Rav Shekosav, where they write, the hard kosav a Magen Avram shegira likrais balachash b'toich Sefer im HaKoreh. When the Magen Avram suggests that the right way to do the HaTorah is that the tzibur should be reading along with the Baal Koreh, hainu davka kisha HaKoreh koreh mitoich HaChumash. That's only if the Baal Koreh is reading it out of a Chumash. And since it's a Chumash, it's not even a Sefer Sholem. It's like the Sefer Haftarta that we spoke about yesterday. It's a Sefer that's not a Sefer Shalem. It only has selections from the Navi. And therefore, he can't be Moitzi the Tzibur. But if the Baal Koreh is reading the Haftarah out of a Navi, if he's reading it, let's say, out of a klaf, or even if it's out of a printed Sefer Shalem, Yikrahu Levad, then the Baal Koreh should be the only one reading it. V'kulam yu shoymin, and everybody else should be listening, because then the Baal Koreh could actually be Moitzi the Tzibur. Vayin sham oid shekasav dim yikra akol b'karam, and im HaTorah, in the Meiser Rav takes it even further. He says if everybody is going to be reading it along with the Baal Koreh, Tiyeh Birkas HaKoreh Bracha Levatala, then the bracha of the Baal Koreh might actually end up being a bracha Levatala. Why? Because if nobody is listening to his kriya, then it's a bracha Levatala. Okay, moving on to Sivav now, the top line of Samach Gimel Amud Aleph. Ein hamaftir maftir at sheyigmar agoyla ligloyal hasefer Torah. The HaTorah should not be read until after Galila. So the laning is finished, we do Hagba, now we do Galila, we close up the Sefer Torah. Until the Sefer Torah is completely closed up with the mantle and everything else, we don't start reading the HaTorah until that point. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Yud Beis, Ein Hamafter. Hainu, this means she'ein rashay lahaskal loymar HaTorah. We're not permitted to start reading the HaTorah at sheyigmar until the Galila is finished. V'hatam. The reason for this is kedei shegam hagoyla yiten libay lama sheyomer hamafter. After all, the one who had Hagba and the one who had Galila, they also have to pay attention to the Haftarah. So don't start the Haftarah while they're engaged in Hag B'Galila. Shechayvi yal kol adam lishmaya parshas ha-Haftarah. There's a chiyuv, there's an obligation on every member of the tzibur to listen to the Haftarah, k'moy parsha shebesefer Torah. Just as there's a chiyuv for everybody to listen to the Kriyas HaTorah from the Sefer Torah, the parsha of the week. Uberashi sham mashma, and Rashi in Masechta Sotah it is implied that you have to wait until the Sefer Torah is completely wrapped up in the mantle and everything else. Ein l'salik mi ala shulchan Sefer HaNeviim o yachumish shekarim b'hamaftir ad achar habracha. After the maftir finished reading the Haftarah. So after the laning of the Haftarah is complete, now the fellow who had maftir is going to make the 4 brachas that are made after the laning of the Haftarah. Now, don't take the Chumash or the Sefer Navi or the Klaf, whatever the Baal Koreh laned the Haftarah out of, do not remove it from the bima until the Baal Maftir finishes all of the brachas that he makes after the Haftarah. Kedei sheyireh v'yavarech al ma shehiftir, because the bracha is going on the Haftarah. There's a bracha before the Haftarah, and then there are 4 brachas after the Haftarah. What are you making the bracha on? You're making the bracha on that laning that you just did out of this sefer. We know that whenever you make a bracha, the object that you're making the bracha over is supposed to be there. It's supposed to be next to you. You make a bracha, Berchas HaShofar on Rosh Hashanah, it's not that you make the bracha and then you have somebody bring the shofar. The shofar is supposed to be there on the bima. There's a machlokes in the Paiskim, should the shofar be uncovered, should the shofar be covered, but the shofar definitely has to be there. You make your bracha on your lulav and esrog, the lulav and esrog have to be there. Now over there it's a little bit different because those are Berchas HaMitzvahs, and we can't have a hefsik between the bracha and the doing of the performing of the mitzvah. So you make a bracha on lulav and esrog, you have to have the lulav and esrog right there, so that as soon as you finish making the bracha, you can be yotze the mitzvah. Over here, it's not quite the same. We're not talking about a Berchas HaMitzvah, but still, it is appropriate that the object that represents the thing that you're making the bracha over, you're making the bracha on the laning of the Haftarah, the sefer of the Navi that you lane the Haftarah on should remain on the bima until after the brachas are complete. Moving along to Siv Zayin. It says to Mechaber, B'Shabbos shahaparshiyos mechubaros, when we lane 2 parshas on 1 week, Truma Tetzaveh, Vayakel Pekudei, Achrei Mois Kedoshim, etc., etc. When we have a Shabbos that we lane 2 parshas, which Haftarah do we lane? Says the Mechaber, Maftirin b'Haftarah's Parsha Shniya. You lane the Haftarah that belongs to the second parsha. So you have Truma and Tetzaveh, you're laning them on one Shabbos, you're going to lane the HaTorah of Tetzaveh. Why is that? Because that's what you just finished off with. We learned at the beginning of the Siman that the HaTorah has to be a topic that matches the topic of the laning. If you read two parshas, so the HaTorah should match the topic of the second parsha, because that's the one that you just finished laning. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Eis Katan Yud Gimel Shniya, Shaba Mesaymin Esakriya, because you finished the laning with the second parsha. So the HaTorah should be the inyan of the second parsha. Now, we go to the Ramah, second line down, the middle of the line. The Ramah starts off by sending us to Siman Tav Chav Ches. Hagav Ayin Lekaman Siman Tav Chav Ches. Let's take a look here in the Mishnah Berurah. It's Katan Yadalit. V'Ayin Lekaman Siman Tav Chav Ches. Le'inyan Avteras Acharei Ukedoshim Kishehein Mechubaros. One great exception to this rule is Acharei Mois Kedoshim. When we lane Acharei Mois and Kedoshim together, we do not lane the HaTorah of Kedoshim, we actually lane the HaTorah of Acharei Mois. I believe the reason for that is because the nature of the HaTorah of Acharei Mois is it's much more positive and upbeat in nature than the topic of the HaTorah of Kedoshim. And therefore, even though we're finishing off the laning with Kedoshim, we would rather give precedence and priority to the more positive laning, which is the one of Acharei Mois. And the Mishnah Berurah says we should also look at Siman Tav Chav Ches, the Yeser Dinei HaTorah, where we have some more details of the halachas of HaTorah that appear over there. Continuing in the words of the Ramah, second line down near the end of the line. We're all familiar with Yizkar that we say on Yom Tov. Says the Ramah, V'nagu lahaskir achar kriyas HaTorah nishmais hamesim. There is a minig to recite Yizkar. Now, when we talk about Yizkar here, we're primarily talking about the paragraph of Kel Molei Rachamim. The Ramah says, "V'nagu lahaskir achar kriyas HaTorah nishmais hamesim." There is a minig to be maskir the neshamas, to say Kel Molei Rachamim after the kriyas HaTorah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Tesvav, achar kriyas HaTorah. What exactly is the Ramah coming to say here? First of all, we don't do Yizkar every Shabbos. We only do Yizkar on Yom Tov. But what is the point that the Ramah is making, that the minig is to do Yizkar after Kriyas HaTorah? Explains the Mishnah Berurah La'afuke, this stands in contrast to the idea Acharei Ashrei Lo Yoymar Shum Davar. The Yizkar, if it's going to be said, should be said right after the completion of Kriyas HaTorah, meaning the completion of the HaTorah and everything, the entire Kriyas HaTorah. But Yizkar should be recited before Ashrei, not after Ashrei. La'afuke achar Ashrei lo yarma shum davar. But don't make any hefsek of any kind between Ashrei and Shemona Esrei. Why? We know that in the Seder HaTfilah, we say Ashrei. After Ashrei, the Chazan says Chatzi Kaddish before we start the Shtil Shemona Esrei of Musaf. What is that Kaddish going on? Kaddish always goes on the completion, kind of a section of davening. What exactly is that Kaddish going on? Says the Mishnah Berurah, that Kaddish hu koyal Ashrei, Sharmar B'tchila. That Kaddish is actually going on the recitation of Ashrei. So you can't say Ashrei and then do Yizkar, because then you're making a hefsek between the Ashrei and the Kaddish is going on the Ashrei. So the Ramah is coming to tell you, if you have the minig of doing Yizkar on Shabbos, do it after Kriyas HaTorah before Ashrei. Do not do it between Ashrei and the Kaddish that comes before the Shtil Shemona Esrei of Musaf. V'alkein ein lahafsik beineim. Now, you'll ask me a question. What do you mean we can't be mafsik between Ashrei and Kaddish? We're always mafsik between Ashrei and Kaddish, because we say Ashrei, and then after Ashrei is when we return the Sefer Torah to the Aron. And when we return the Sefer Torah to the Aron, the Chazan says, Yahalalu, right? So Yahalalu Hashem Kiddusko Shmei Levadoi. Why isn't that a hefsek? Says the Mishnah Berurah, Yahalalu Sha'imrim ein hefsek. Yahalalu is not a hefsek. Now the Mishnah Berurah does not say why Yahalalu is not a hefsek. There are those that say that one pasuk is not a hefsek. The kasha on that is, it's very very nice to say that one pasuk is not a hefsek. But when the Chazan says Yehalalu, we all say Mizmor LeDavid and we say Uvenucha Yomar. Why isn't that a hefsek? Okay, that is something that requires some explanation. This that the minig has grown. There was a minig apparently that when there was an ill individual, the chazan would hold the Sefer Torah after Ashrei, and he would make a mishaberach l'chaylim. We don't do this. We make the mishaberach l'chaylim before we end Kriyas HaTorah. We do it, let's say, before Hag Ben Galila. We don't do it between Ashrei and Kaddish. Apparently, there was a minig to make a Mishaberach L'chaylim between Ashrei and the Kaddish. Mafsik Harbe ben Ashrei l'Kaddish Lefnei Hamid. In which case, you would have a long, drawn-out hefsik between Ashrei and Kaddish. We all know how long that Mishaberach L'chaylim, unfortunately, could take. In a lot of shuls, this has become a big problem, where they make the Mishaberach for the Chaylim, and it just, unfortunately, nebuch. There are a lot of Chaylim. And everybody comes with their lists of 10 chaylim, and the Mishaberach L'chaylim just becomes a big tercha de tzibura. Different kehillas have tried to handle this in different ways. I've seen kehillas where they have 2 or 3 or 4 people standing by the bima making mishaberachs for the chaylim at the same time. Problem with that is, then when it comes to the amen, they're all saying the Nomar Amen at the same time. Everybody's saying Amen to 4 different things. In other places, what they do is the Gabbai gives a clap. He says, Mishaberach Avisen Avram Yitzchak Yaakov Yavarchu Yerapa Es HaChaylim, and then he pauses, and everybody puts in the names of the Chaylim that they want to mention, and then he continues. Some Rabbanim like it this way, some Rabbanim like it that way, some Rabbanim don't like breaking with tradition at all, and they want one Gabbai by the Bima, and if it takes 7-8 minutes, it takes 7-8 minutes. Okay. Anyway, the Mishnah Berurah says over here that the minig to make the Mishaberach for the Chaylim between Ashrei and the Kaddish, Shaloi Kadinhu, it is improper, it is Shaloi Ka'alacha, and it should not be done. Okay, continuing on with the Ramah, 3 lines down, the Ramah says, not only is there a minig to say Yiskar after Kriyas HaTorah, also Ulevarech ha'oski b'tzarchei tzibur. We also have this beautiful Mishaberach that we say before Musaf, is called Yavarech is called Misha Oiski B'tzarchei Tzibur Be'amuna, and we mentioned the people who give money Ner Lamor, V'yayin L'Kiddush, Pas La'orchim, Tzedakah La'aniyim. So we mention all of these things, and we make a Mishaberach for those that are Oisik B'tzarchei Tzibur. Says the Ramah Kol Mokaim Lefi Minhagoi. Each person should follow the minig of their tzibur, and we do this at this time in shul before Musaf, because that's when we have a big tzibur together, and we want to emphasize to the whole tzibur the chashivus of being oisik b'tzarchei tzibur. So it's kind of like making an announcement from the bima, Rabbi Sai, look, we're giving a mishaberach to all of those people who are oisik b'tzarchei tzibur. Please step up to the plate and be oisik b'tzarchei tzibur. Continues the Ramah, v'noyhagin loymar yikum purkan, and we're also noyig to say the two paragraphs that we have of yikum purkan to give brachas to the Rosh HaKohol, etc., etc. Ve'ein bazeh mishum iser tchina b'Shabbos, and this does not run afoul of the halacha that we're not mevakesh on Shabbos, we're not mispalel for our needs on Shabbos. Yikum Purkim is not a problem in that aspect because we're not davening for something. What we're doing is we're giving a bracha. To give a bracha on Shabbos is okay. Says the Ramah weiter, we also have the minig to say that the paragraph of Avarachamim, was instituted after the times of the Crusades. Nebuch, when so many Yidden lost their lives, right? We're always the ones who bear the brunt of everything that whenever the Goyim carry on, we're always the one who pay the price for it. So during the Crusades, there were terrible pogroms. Many Yidden lost their lives. They instituted to recite the paragraph of Avarachamim to be maskir their neshamas and to give brachas that their neshamas should have an aliyah. So we're knowing to say Avarachamim, when any day when we would not say tzidkascha by mincha on Shabbos afternoon, then we don't say Avarachamim. The Mefarshim ask a kasha on this Ramah because this rule doesn't seem to be a solid rule that it's true that whenever we don't say tzidkascha, we don't say avarachimim. There are exceptions to that rule. V'chein kisheyesh chasana oimila, so too if there is an afraf, or if there's a chasen in the shul, oimila, or if there's a bris milah in shul, you don't say avarachimim. V'yesh b'kaimei she'ein oimer ma'asai kishem avarchan achodesh. There are kehillas where they do not say avarachimim on Shabbos bevarchim, melvad b'mei asvira, with the exception of Shabbos bevarchim during Sfira, because again, during those times, I believe it was also in Germany, I think most specifically, where many Yidden lost their lives during the Crusades, and Tach V'Tat, etc., etc. So during those times, we say avarachimim even on Shabbos when it's Shabbos bevarchim. And when it comes to all of these things, the Ramah says, each tzibur should follow their established minig. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Katan Tezayin. Whenever you don't say tzidkascha, you don't say avarachimim. Says the Mishnah Berurah, v'mchal Tisha B'av b'Shabbos. When Tisha B'av falls out on Shabbos, afa pi she'ein oimrim tzidkascha tzedek, even though you don't say tzidkascha by Shabbos mincha, oimrim avarachimim, but you do say avarachimim. Kein kasav el yerabah b'simin tafkuf nun dalet. V'apri begadu b'simin tafkuf nun tes kasav, shagam kein maskirin by neshamas, oisid shemaskirin b'chol Shabbos. Kehillas that have the minig to say Yiskar every Shabbos would say Yiskar when Tisha B'av falls out on Shabbos. Aval b'Shabbos shebevarchin by Av, but Shabbos bevarchin Chodesh Av, or b'Shabbos shechol by Rosh Chodesh Av Gufa, or if Rosh Chodesh Av falls out on a Shabbos, then ein oimrim avarachimim, you do not recite avarachimim, ve'ein maskirin by neshamis. Ois cut Yudzayin, ki shemevarchin HaChodesh. Places have the meaning not to say avarachimim on Shabbos bevarchim, ve'ein maskirin by neshamis, and it's in Kehillas where they have the meaning to say Yiskar, they don't say Yiskar on Shabbos bevarchim. Even when it's Shabbos bevarchim b'mei asfira, where we said you do say avarachimim, afilu hachi ein maskirin by neshamas, by Yiskar you would not say. Rak l'misha niftar ba'isay shavua, you would just make a kel mole for somebody who died that week. Prima Gadam kasav shekadayim she'ein maskirin oz neshamas klal. Prima Gadam says you would not say Yiskar at all on Shabbos bevarchim. Because we suffered terribly during the time period of the Yemei Sfira, during the Crusades, and at other times. So during that time period, the recitation of avarachimim is going to supersede the fact that it is Shabbos bevarchim. Even if there's a bris milah in shul on those Shabbosos during the Yemei Sfira, the ikatarti l'tivusa. So now you have two reasons to treat that Shabbos in a better way. There's a milah and it's also Shabbos bevarchim. Afilu hachi oimrim, you would still say avarachimim. The oimrim ma'isay b'mei chodesh Nisan keshem avarcha chodesh Iyar de'espeinami tarti l'tivusa. V'hoadin the same halacha would apply im yesh milah b'Nisan if there's a bris milah in shul in chodesh Nisan de'ikatlasa l'tivusa. Gam kein oimrim oisay, you would still say avarachimim on Shabbos bevarchim. Dein chilik bein tarta l'tivusa ubein tlasa l'tivusa. Aval kishakar Rosh Chodesh Iyar b'Shabbos, when Rosh Chodesh Iyar itself falls out on Shabbos, it's not Shabbos bevarchim, but Rosh Chodesh itself falls out on Shabbos, ein oimer moisai. V'chosh kein she'ein maskirin by neshamis, you don't say avarachim, certainly you wouldn't say Yiskar. V'chein b'chol Chodesh Nisan, af b'yamim shalachar ha'pesach du'tek asfira, gam kein ein maskirin by neshamis, aval avarachim oimer by kemen shehu b'mei hasfira. Now we move on to Siman Reish Pei Hey, which is a very interesting siman, where we're going to talk about the halacha, the requirement to be maver sedra, the requirement of shnayim mikra ve'echad targum. Siman Reish Pei Hey, likra parsha shnayim mikra ve'echad targum, the chiyuv, the obligation on everyone to read the parsha of the week twice, to read the Lashon HaKodesh text, the text of the psukim themselves twice, and to read the Targum Onkelos once. Ubay Zayin Se'ifim, and here we have 7 Se'ifim. Says the Mechaber Sif Aleph. Afal Pisha Adam Shemea Kol HaTorah Kula Kol Shabbos B'tzibur. Even though a person who comes to shul every Shabbos throughout the year, by the end of the year, he is going to hear the laning of the Ganze Torah. He's going to hear Kol HaTorah Kula. He's going to hear the laning of every single parsha of Chumash. Still in all, Chayiv Likrois La'atzmai B'chol Shavua, Parshas Oisai HaShavua, there is a separate chiyuv, which is for every individual to read the entire parsha of the week on his own, Shnayim Mikra, to read the psukim themselves twice, the Echad Targum, and to read the Targum Onkelos on the psukim once. And this applies, says the Mechaber, afilu atarois v'divain, even to the psukim in Parshas Masai, when the pasuk lists all of the different places where the Klal Yisrael traveled while they were in the Midbar. So these are names of places in the Midbar, atarois and divain. Guess what? There's no difference between the words of the pasuk, atarois v'divain, and the words of the Targum Onkelos. It's also atarois v'divain. So even though I read the pasuk twice, and I said atarois v'divain, and now I'm going to look at the Onkelos, and I'm going to say atarois v'divain for a third time. So when I say the Targum, I'm not saying anything different than I did when I said the Mikra. Still, you have to do Shnayim Mikra, the Echad Targum. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Aleph, Likrais la'atzmai b'chol shavua. The words of the Mechaber over here are very specific. The obligation of Shnayim Mikra v'Echad Targum is that you need to read for yourself the psukim twice in Lashon HaKodesh, and the Targum Onkelos once, likrais la'atzmai b'chol shavua, each week. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Hainu, what does the Mechaber mean when he says that you have an obligation to do this each week? Shelo yakdim likrais koidem oisoi shavua. You can't do it early. So you can't sit down the week after Simchas HaTorah and say, you know what, I always fall behind in Shnayim Mikra v'Echad Targum. I'm going to sit down right now for a few hours, and I'm going to do Shnayim Mikra v'Echad Targum on the whole Sefer Bereshis. I'm going to do Bereshis Tarek, Lech Lecha, Vayerech, Ha'isara Toldos. I'm going to do the whole Sefer Bereshis today. And now I don't have to worry about Shnayim Mikra v'Echad Targum for the next several weeks, because I'm covered for the entire Sefer Bereshis. And when we get to Parshas Shmos, maybe I'll sit down and I'll do the whole Sefer Shmos. Or you also can't do it the other way. You can't be a slowpoke and make up for lost time. You can't say, you know what, 2 weeks before Simchas Torah, 2 weeks before we'll Messiah the Torah with V'zayis HaBracha, I'll sit down and I'll do Shnayim Mikra v'Echad Targum on Kol Torah Kula. No, the Mechaber says you got to do it b'chol shavua. You have to do it each week. You can't do it early before that week, nor could you do it late after that week. You have to complete the Shnayim Mikra v'Echad Targum of that week, of the parsha of that week, together with the tzibur, meaning that you have to do it before it gets laid on Shabbos. Anybody who does do this, and he finishes his parshas with the tzibur, this is a skula that's brought down in halacha. It's brought down in shas, not in halacha. This is a gemara in brachas. If you makayim the dictates, the requirements of Shnayim Mikra v'Echad Targum, and you do it that week, and you finish it on time, this is a skula for arichas yamim, for a lengthy life. And it's a skula that's brought down in Shas. This is not some esoteric skula that somebody drew up from some makubal somewhere. This is brought down in Shas. This is a chazal. Oiskan Beit Shnayim Mikra. You have to read the psukim twice. Avaloi Yikra Echad Mikra. You can't lane the psukim once, the Echad Targum, and do the Targum once, v'yechaven l'shmoya ma'ashliach tzibur, and try to fulfill your second reading of the Mikra by listening to the Baal Koreh. You got to do each pasuk twice, the Lashon HaKodesh, yourself, and the Targum once. Don't think you can get away with doing the pasuk in Lashon HaKodesh once, then doing the Targum, and you think you're going to be yotze the second Mikra by listening to the Baal Koreh. That you can't do. You have to read it twice. Beside listening to it from the Shliach Tzibur. Unless you read along with the Baal Koreh. If you read along with the Baal Koreh, that reading could stand as one of your Shnayim Mikra. That you could do. You can't cover yourself by a simple listening to the Baal Koreh. But if you're going to say it along with the Baal Koreh, that can be one of your Shnayim Mikra. He says, take a look at the Magen Avram, Sivkot Ches, Shakosov writes, B'Shem Lechem Chamudais, B'di'eved yoytze pamachas b'ma sheshama me'ashliach tzibur. B'di'eved, the Magen Avram says, you could be yoytze one mikra with what you listen to the Baal Koreh. But that's only b'di'eved, Rabbi say. And v'yesh achrayim shemachmirin afilu di'eved, and there are those achrayim who say that this doesn't even work b'di'eved. He brings that down from the Eila Shabbos, the Prisha, the Shari Knesset Sagdola. So it's a big b'di'eved to be yoytze one time of the Shtayim Mikra by listening to the Baal Koreh. Ube'inyan akriya, and as far as the exact way you should do Shtayim Mikra v'chatargum, yesh deis baseh ben achrayim. Over here, the Achrayim have a difference of opinion. There are those that say sheyikra kol pasuk shtei pamim v'targum alav. There are those that say that what you should do is you should read each pasuk twice and then say the targum. So vayidaber Hashem al Moshe lemar, vayidaber Hashem al Moshe lemar, and then say the targum, and then go to the next pasuk, say it twice, and then say the targum, and then go to the third pasuk, say it twice, and then say the targum. So there are those Achrayim that say, how do you do Shtayim Mikra v'Echad Targum? You do it pasuk by pasuk, one pasuk at a time. There are those that say sheyikra kol parsha shtei pamim, that you read each parsha twice, and then the targum. What does that mean? That you read the parsha. It doesn't mean that you read the whole parsha's toldos twice and then do the targum. What it means is hainu sheyikra kol parsha psucha istuma shtei pamim. You should go to the stuma or the psucha. The stumas and the psuchas are the places where there are gaps in the writing in the Sefer Torah. If you learn from a chumash, you'll see there are samachs and there are peis. A samach is a stuma, a pei is a psucha. But whatever it is, a pei or a samach marks the end of what halacha calls a parsha. So there are those Achrayim that say that the right way to do Shtayim Mikra v'Echad Targum is do until a samach, and then do it over again, and then do the targum on that section. And then go to the next samach or the next pei, and do that twice, and then read the targum on that section. The Magen Avram, the Magen Avram, the Shari Tshuva, they follow the first opinion to do it pasuk by pasuk. In the Sefer Ma'aseh Rav, it's brought down that the Gra would do it by doing the second way, by doing a parsha at a time, going to a psucha or a stuma, or when he felt that it's the end of a topic. When he got to the end of a topic, then he did the mikra for the second time, and then did the targum. Udavid Kamarovid. We don't have to get so hung up on exactly how we do it. Either way you do it is okay. Somebody who is capable of laning, somebody who's a baki in the tam, that means the trop, and banakudais, in the proper vowelization of the words. What does this mean? This means essentially somebody who's prepared to lane from a Sefer Torah. Toiv lahad likreis b'Sefer Torah gufa. There would be a big inyan to do Shtayim Mikra v'Echad Targum, to do the Mikra twice out of a Sefer Torah. Now you can only do that if you're bucky in the tam and you're bucky in the kudos. In order to do it after the Sefer Torah, it can't be gobbledygook that you're saying. You have to know the proper vowelization of the words, because there's no nekudas in the Sefer Torah, and you have to know the trop, because there's no trop in the Sefer Torah. That's why Chavetz Chaim says you can only do this if you're a bucky in the trop and you're a bucky in the nekudas. Then there's a big inyan to do it from the Sefer Torah. I actually knew somebody who did this every week for decades, and that was Reb Yossel Fishman, Zechreinu Levracha, the long time shamish of the Sfarish Yeshul on 14th Avenue in Borough Park. He told me that the way he was Marvis Sedra was, he laned every Shabbos, I think at 2 of the minyanim in the shul. He laned at the early minyan downstairs in the shul, and he laned at the main minyan, the 9 o'clock minyan upstairs in the shul. So he was an accomplished Baal Koreh. So he was definitely a baki in the tam and the nekudos. He told me that the way he was Marvis Sedra was, at some point during the week, he went upstairs to the Sfarish Yeshul. He took out the Sefer Torah that they were going to use for laning that week, and he did mikra once. He laned the entire parsha one time from that Sefer Torah. Now, there was another reason he did it, because he was also a magia. He wasn't a cipher, but he was well versed enough in the halachas of Safras, and he was capable enough as a sofer to be able to make corrections, to fix problems in the Sefer Torah. So by doing the mikra once in the Sefer Torah upstairs in the Svar Shul, if he caught a mistake, he fixed it. Or if it was something that he couldn't fix, he put the Sefer Torah away, he took out a different Sefer Torah, and he gave that Sefer Torah to the Sefer to fix it. Then he went downstairs in the Svar Shul, and he did the mikra the second time in the Sefer Torah that they would learn from on Shabbos downstairs. And he would do the same thing. If it needed a correction, he would correct it. If it had to be closed up and switched for a different Sefer, he would do it. In this way, he told me that in several decades, a Sefer Torah was never put away on Shabbos in the Svar Shul because they found a mistake. Because he always checked the Sefer Torah before Shabbos. That was a dedicated shamash. But that's how he did Shtay Mikra V'Echad Targum. He did it from the Sefer Torah. We're going to stop. He Zichroi Baruch. His neshama should have an aliyah. We're going to stop over here. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. This is limud HaTorah should be megan against Chayes or all the Rosh should send Yeshua Sefuas Parnaset Sheduchim to those in need. We should be zoichet to see the BS called Tzedek B'Meher V'Yameinu. Amen. Be well.